All right, so I have my tubes all rolled together. I taped them on the very end. I also taped it as I went. Make sure that you put a little drop of glue as you go, as you're putting it together. At least halfway through. The first little bit, it's not that big a deal because you can wind it really tight. But as it gets further out, it's harder to keep the wind really tight and wrapping it really tight. And so a little bit of glue inside the tube that you're attaching, and then when you slide the other tube in, that seemed to help quite a bit. Keep that in mind as you're going. Now, here comes the difficult part. Once we get this done, okay, you can kind of hit it down on the table, and that will give you a nice flat surface to start with. It might be a little bit uneven. I don't know if you guys can see that on the top, but that's not a big deal. And what we're going to do is I'm going to figure out, and I'm just going to kind of press from the inside here, okay? And I'm just going to slowly start moving, okay? And you can see that I'm kind of pushing out the back side of this, all right? A little bit at a time, all right? And please go very slow, very, very slow as you're doing this. You don't want to push too far out. Notice how here it's getting pushed out a little bit further. If that tube was really thin when I made it, if that pops out, this will completely unravel and we'll be left with a mess, okay? That's what happened with this one. This was yesterday's attempt at it, and yeah, so it didn't go back together very well. So as I can see here, this is a little bit stretched out a little bit more than I want to. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of just, it might be easier just to go from this side so that I don't push out too far on that. Because see, like this one, I'm gonna slide that back down, okay? And you wanna make sure that you leave the bottom wide enough, okay? And you can kind of push down a little bit so that it's gonna have a good enough base to be able to hold itself together. Okay, so I'm kind of looking here at how big of a gap I have, or how much of the tube that's been flattened out, how much I'm stretching that out. Okay, and you want to get, you know, as much as you can out of it, but obviously don't go too far. Otherwise, it will come apart on you. All right, so I'm going to keep going a little bit more. And again, if you don't like it, you can kind of push down a little bit. I'm going to try and hold it up there so as you can see, as it stretches and it gets a little bit taller, I am actually just sliding each of those tubes up on one layer versus the other, okay? And it's not going to be that big, okay? Like I said, I mean, this almost looks like a flower pot almost. The wider, the more pieces that you have, the wider it's going to become, the more bowl-like it will become. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, 40 of those is a lot. You know, that's not that big. Here's my hand, okay? And it's, you know, like I said, it looks almost like a little flower pot than it does a bowl. So just something to keep in mind if that's something that you want to do. If you've got 40 of those made and this is perfectly good enough for you, then hey, you're good to go. All right. So I'm going to mess around with this a little bit more, but for the most part, there you go. You can see the inside of it's got that cool design, the outside has got that colorful design, the bottom of it is nice and thick, and that should have plenty of weight in the bottom.